The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars, planets, and civilizations. Among them, Earth stood as a small dot in the endless expanse of space. For centuries, humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars, and they finally succeeded. They built spaceships, explored distant worlds, and even joined the Galactic Council, a gathering of advanced races that governed interstellar affairs. But despite all their efforts, Earth remained an outsider. To the other species, humans were nothing more than a primitive race, unworthy of respect or attention. Captain Ryan Carter sat in his chair on the bridge of the SS Vanguard, staring out at the stars through the large viewport. The ship hummed softly around him, its systems working perfectly. Beside him stood Lieutenant Laura Hayes, her arms crossed as she watched the same endless sea of stars. Both of them shared the same frustration, though they rarely spoke about it openly. Humanity had tried so hard to prove itself, but no matter what they did, the Galactic Council ignored them. Ryan sighed and leaned back in his seat. His dark hair was slightly messy, and there were faint lines under his eyes from lack of sleep. "We've done everything right," he muttered, almost to himself. "We followed their rules, attended their meetings, and played by their game. And yet," he trailed off, shaking his head. Laura glanced at him. Her sharp green eyes softened for a moment before returning to their usual determined look. "And yet we're still stuck at the bottom," she finished for him. "They don't see us as equals, Ryan. They never will. Not unless we force them to." Ryan frowned. Force wasn't something he liked to think about. He believed in diplomacy, in finding peaceful solutions. That's why he had spent years traveling to alien conferences, speaking on behalf of Earth, and trying to convince the Council that humanity deserved a place among the stars. But every time he spoke, he was met with blank stares or polite smiles that didn't reach their cold, uninterested eyes. It was maddening. "Force isn't the answer," Ryan said firmly. "If we start throwing punches, we'll only prove them right. They'll say we're too violent, too reckless. We need to show them that we're better than that." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Better? Ryan, we've been better for decades, and look where it's gotten us. Stuck on the sidelines while the big boys play. Maybe it's time we showed them we're not just some weak little species they can push around." Before Ryan could respond, the comm system crackled to life. A voice came through, calm and professional. "Captain Carter, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command." Ryan straightened up immediately. "Patch it through," he ordered. The face of Admiral Jacob Monroe appeared on the main screen. He was a tall man with graying hair and a stern expression that matched his rank. Behind him, rows of officers worked busily at their stations. "Ryan," Monroe began without preamble, "the Council just announced another summit. Guess who? Didn't get an invite?" Ryan clenched his jaw. "Let me guess. They didn't even mention us." Monroe nodded grimly. "Not a word. As far as they're concerned, Earth doesn't exist. I've already sent a formal protest, but you know how these things go. They'll brush it off like always." Ryan exchanged a glance with Laura. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Over the years, the Council had held numerous summits, treaties, and negotiations, all without inviting humanity. Each time, Earth's leaders protested, but their complaints fell on deaf ears. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't important enough to include. "What do you want us to do?" Ryan asked, keeping his tone neutral. "For now, stay put," Monroe replied. "But keep your eyes open. If anything changes, report back immediately. And Ryan," he paused, his gaze hardening, "don't do anything rash. We can't afford to escalate tensions right now." "Yes, sir," Ryan said, saluting. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge silent once again. Laura let out a low whistle. "Don't do anything rash. Easier said than done." Ryan rubbed his temples. "I know, but he's right. We can't risk starting a war over this. Not yet." "Not yet?" Laura echoed, raising an eyebrow. "So you're saying there might come a time when we should take action?" Ryan hesitated. The truth was, he didn't have an answer. Part of him wanted to believe that diplomacy would eventually work, that patience and persistence would pay off. but another part of him couldn't ignore the growing anger inside him. How much longer could they sit back and watch as Earth was treated like a child? As if reading his thoughts, Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this, Ryan. He gave her a small smile. Thanks, Laura. I appreciate that. For now, all they could do was wait. The Vanguard drifted silently through space, its crew going about their duties as usual. Outside, the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Beautiful, yes, but also cold and distant. Just like the rest of the galaxy seemed to be. Unbeknownst to Ryan and Laura, events were unfolding elsewhere that would soon thrust humanity into the spotlight. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, a mining colony buzzed with activity. Workers moved between towering machines extracting valuable minerals from the icy surface. Everything seemed normal until a shadow passed overhead. A Krillian patrol ship descended from the sky, its sleek design gleaming ominously in the dim sunlight. The miners froze, staring up in confusion. What were the Krillians doing here? This area belonged to Earth, according to ancient treaties signed long before any of them were born. The patrol ship landed heavily, kicking up clouds of dust. Armed, Krillian soldiers emerged, their weapons drawn. One of them stepped forward, his voice booming through a translator device. This territory belongs to the Krillian Empire. Leave now or face the consequences. Panic spread among the miners. Some dropped their tools and ran, while others tried to argue. But the Krillians weren't interested in talking. Without warning, they opened fire, their energy weapons cutting through the air with deadly precision. By the time the attack ended, the colony lay in ruins. Buildings were reduced to rubble, equipment destroyed, and many lives lost. Survivors huddled together, shaken and terrified. One of them managed to send a distress signal to Earth Command, describing the horror they had witnessed. When news of the attack reached Ryan and Laura, it confirmed their worst fears. The Krillians had crossed a line, violating Earth's territory and attacking innocent civilians. Yet when they reported the incident to the Galactic Council, the response was infuriatingly dismissive. They claim it's our fault, Laura spat, pacing back and forth on the bridge. They actually said the miners provoked them. Ryan stared at the floor, his fists clenched. It's unbelievable. How can they justify this? They don't care about justice, Laura snapped. All they care about is power. And until we show them that we're not afraid to fight back, they'll keep walking all over us. Ryan looked at her, seeing the fire in her eyes. For the first time, he wondered if she might be right. Diplomacy hadn't worked. Patience hadn't worked. Maybe it really was time for humanity to stand up and demand respect, even if it meant taking drastic measures. Outside, the stars continued to shine, oblivious to the storm brewing within the hearts of two determined individuals. The attack on Titan sent shockwaves through humanity. News of the devastation spread quickly, and within hours, Earth Command was flooded with reports from survivors. The Krillians had shown no mercy, destroying everything in their path. Buildings that once housed miners and their families were now piles of twisted metal and ash. Equipment worth billions of credits lay in ruins, useless. Worst of all, dozens of lives had been lost. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the SS Vanguard, staring at the holographic display hovering above the central console. It showed a detailed map of Saturn's moons, with Titan highlighted in red. Beside him, Lieutenant Laura Hayes studied the same image, her jaw tight with anger. The two of them had just received the full report from Earth Command, and it painted a grim picture. They're calling it an accident, Laura said bitterly, breaking the silence. An unfortunate misunderstanding. As if they didn't know exactly what they were doing. Ryan nodded slowly. He had read the Krillian statement himself. According to them, the miners had trespassed into Krillian territory and refused to leave when ordered. The attack, they claimed, was a necessary measure to defend their borders. But everyone aboard the Vanguard knew the truth. The Krillians were lying. This wasn't about borders or misunderstandings, it was about power. The Krillians wanted to remind humanity where it stood, on the bottom rung of the galactic ladder. "We can't let this slide," Ryan said quietly. His voice carried a weight that made Laura glance at him sharply. Normally, Ryan was the voice of reason, always urging caution and diplomacy. Hearing him talk like this was unusual and telling. "What are you thinking?" Laura asked, folding her arms across her chest. Ryan hesitated before answering. "I'm thinking, maybe it's time we stopped playing by their rules. If we go to the council again, they'll just brush us off like always. We need to do something that makes them listen, for real this time." Laura's eyes narrowed slightly. "You mean retaliation?" "Not necessarily," Ryan replied quickly. "But we have to send a message. Something big enough to make them realize we're not going to sit back and take this anymore." Laura considered his words for a moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, let's say we do something bold. What do you have in mind?" Ryan turned back to the holographic display. With a flick of his fingers, he zoomed out, showing a broader view of the solar system. His gaze settled on a blinking dot near the edge of human-controlled space. "There's a neutral trade station here," he said, pointing to the dot. "It's used by multiple species for commerce and negotiations. It's lightly guarded because no one expects trouble there." Laura frowned. "You want to hit a neutral target? Ryan, that could start a war." "I don't want to destroy it," Ryan clarified. "Just disable it temporarily. Knock out their communications, maybe disrupt their power systems. Enough to get their attention without causing any real harm." Laura stared at him, her expression unreadable. Finally, she sighed. "It's risky, but if it works, it will," Ryan interrupted. There was a steely determination in his voice now, something Laura hadn't heard before. "If we pull this off, the council won't be able to ignore us anymore. They'll have to take us seriously." The plan came together quickly. Admiral Jacob Monroe approved it after much deliberation, though he made it clear that the mission would proceed without official support. "If anyone asks," he told Ryan during a secure transmission, "you acted alone. Earth Command had nothing to do with it." Ryan accepted the terms without hesitation. He understood the risks. If things went wrong, humanity might face severe consequences. But doing nothing carried its own dangers. Every day they delayed, the Krillians grew bolder, and the Council dismissed them further. Action, even risky action, was better than sitting idly by. To carry out the operation, Ryan assembled a small strike team led by Commander Ethan Cole, one of the fleet's most skilled pilots. Ethan was known for his quick reflexes and creative problem-solving under pressure. He also had a reputation for being fearless, which made him perfect for a mission like this. When Ryan explained the plan to Ethan, the commander didn't hesitate. "Count me in," he said with a grin. "About time we showed these aliens who we are." Preparations began immediately. Engineers worked around the clock to outfit the Vanguard and its escort ships with advanced cloaking technology, a recent breakthrough developed by Earth's top scientists. The cloaking devices weren't perfect, but they would be enough to hide the fleet long enough to reach the trade station undetected. As the days passed, tension aboard the Vanguard grew palpable. The crew moved with purpose, their movements efficient, but tinged with nervous energy. Everyone knew the stakes. If they succeeded, humanity would finally earn the respect it deserved. If they failed, the repercussions could be catastrophic. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The Vanguard slipped silently out of its docking bay, followed by a handful of smaller ships. Their engines hummed softly as they entered the vast emptiness of space. Outside, the stars glittered like diamonds against the black void, indifferent to the drama unfolding below. For hours, the fleet drifted in silence, relying on the cloaking technology to keep them hidden. Inside the Vanguard, the atmosphere was tense. Ryan paced the bridge, checking and rechecking every detail of the plan. Laura stayed close, offering quiet reassurance whenever she saw doubt creep into his eyes. Ethan, meanwhile, sat in the cockpit of his fighter, running simulations in his head. He had flown countless missions before, but this one felt different. bigger, more important. For the first time, he truly understood what was at stake, not just for him, but for all of humanity. When they reached the trade station, the scene was eerily peaceful. Ships of various designs floated lazily in orbit, their lights twinkling faintly against the backdrop of space. The station itself was a massive structure, shaped like a ring with countless docking ports jutting out like spokes on a wheel. It looked almost fragile, vulnerable, a stark contrast to the heavily fortified military bases the crew was used to seeing. Ryan gave the order to decloak. One by one, the ships emerged from invisibility, their presence startling the station's personnel. Alarms blared instantly and panicked voices crackled over open channels. "Unidentified vessels approaching," someone shouted. "Requesting identification." Ryan ignored the commotion. Instead, he activated the ship's external speakers and addressed the station directly. "This is Captain Ryan Carter of the SS Vanguard. We are here to deliver a message to the Galactic Council. Humanity will no longer tolerate disrespect or aggression. Treat us as equals or face the consequences." Before anyone could respond, Ethan's squadron sprang into action. Fighters darted between the larger ships, targeting key systems with surgical precision. Within minutes, the station's communications array went dark, followed by its primary power grid. Lights flickered and died, plunging sections of the station into darkness. The crew of the Vanguard watched as chaos erupted aboard the station. Ships scrambled to escape, while crews inside tried desperately to restore order. Despite the confusion, Ryan ensured that no one was harmed. This wasn't an act of cruelty, it was a demonstration of strength, a reminder that humanity was capable of striking where it mattered most. When the operation was complete, Ryan transmitted one final message. "Consider this a warning. Humanity is done being ignored." Then, with a flick of his wrist, he ordered the fleet to retreat. As the Vanguard disappeared into the depths of space, leaving behind a crippled trade station and stunned observers, Ryan allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. They had done it. Against all odds, they had struck a blow that would echo across the galaxy. Beside him, Laura smiled faintly. "Now they'll have to listen," she said. Ryan nodded, but his smile was fleeting. He knew the hardest part was yet to come. The Council wouldn't take this lying down. Retaliation was inevitable. But for the first time in years, Ryan felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity had taken its first step toward earning a place among the stars, and there was no turning back now. The news of the attack on the neutral trade station spread faster than anyone could have imagined. Within hours, every corner of the galaxy was buzzing with rumors and speculation. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the incident, but opinions were divided. Some species condemned humanity's actions as reckless and barbaric, while others admired their boldness. For the first time in decades, Earth found itself at the center of galactic attention. Back aboard the SS Vanguard, Captain Ryan Carter felt a mix of emotions. Relief that the mission had gone smoothly, warred with anxiety about what came next. He knew the Council wouldn't let this slide, not without consequences. But for now, humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had forced the galaxy to take notice. Lieutenant Laura Hayes stood beside him on the bridge, her arms crossed, as she watched the flurry of incoming messages from Earth Command. Most were updates about the political fallout, but some contained troubling reports. The Krillians were already mobilizing their fleet, and several other alien factions were calling for immediate retaliation against Earth. "They're not wasting any time," Laura said, shaking her head as she read one of the reports. "Looks like we've got a target on our backs now." Ryan nodded grimly. "We expected that. What matters is how we respond. If we show weakness now, all of this will have been for nothing." Laura glanced at him. "You think they'll come after us?" "It's only a matter of time," Ryan replied. "But we've got something they don't expect. Resolve. They've underestimated us for too long. Now it's our turn to surprise them." Meanwhile, Admiral Jacob Monroe faced mounting pressure from Earth's government leaders. The President herself called an urgent meeting to address the situation. Her face appeared on the main screen in Monroe's office, her expression stern. "Admiral, I need to know exactly what happened out there," she demanded. "Was this your decision? Or did Captain Carter act alone?" Monroe hesitated before answering. He had promised Ryan plausible deniability, but lying to the president wasn't an option. "Ma'am, the mission was approved by me," he admitted, "but Captain Carter led the operation. He believed, and I agreed, that drastic action was necessary to protect our interests." The president sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. "Do you realize what you've done? You've given the council an excuse to declare war on us. Every species out there is calling us reckless and dangerous. How are we supposed to defend ourselves against that kind of backlash?" Monroe met her gaze steadily. "With respect, ma'am, doing nothing would have been worse. The Krillians attacked Titan without provocation, and the council ignored us when we reported it. This was the only way to make them listen." The president didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue further. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing slightly. "All right, let's assume for a moment that this gamble pays off. What's our next move? Because if we don't prepare for the worst, we're going to find ourselves completely unprepared." Monroe nodded. "I've already begun reinforcing our outer colonies. We're moving additional ships to strategic locations, and our engineers are working overtime to upgrade our defenses. If the Krillians come for us, we'll be ready." "Good," the president said sharply. "Because if this goes south, it's not just your head on the line, it's all of ours." As tensions escalated across the galaxy, Commander Ethan Cole spent his downtime preparing for the inevitable fight. Aboard his fighter, he ran through countless combat simulations, refining his skills and testing new tactics. Though confident in his abilities, he couldn't shake the feeling that this upcoming battle would be unlike anything he'd faced before. "You seem tense," remarked Lieutenant Sarah Bennett, the ship's communications officer, as she joined him in the hangar bay. She carried a clipboard tucked under one arm, her blonde hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. Ethan shrugged, leaning against the side of his fighter. "Just thinking about what's coming. The Krillians aren't going to take this lying down. When they hit us, it's going to be bad." Sarah frowned. "Do you think we can hold them off?" "We don't have a choice," Ethan replied firmly. "If we lose, it's not just us, it's everyone back home. Our families, our friends, everything we've built. I won't let that happen." Sarah studied him for a moment before nodding. "Then I guess we'd better make sure we're ready." While the crew prepared for war, Ambassador Claire Bennett worked tirelessly behind the scenes to rally support for humanity. Stationed aboard the Vanguard, she reached out to sympathetic alien species appealing to their sense of fairness. Few were willing to openly side with Earth, but some offered quiet assurances that they would advocate for restraint during council meetings. One such ally was the Varnock, a reclusive race known for their immense technological prowess. Their ambassador, a towering figure with shimmering silver skin, spoke privately with Claire via secure transmission. "Your people have taken a bold step," he rumbled, his deep voice resonating through the speakers. "It is unexpected, but perhaps necessary." Claire nodded eagerly. "We didn't want to resort to violence, but we had no other options. The council ignored us, and the Krillians attacked us without provocation. We needed to send a message." The Varnock ambassador tilted his head thoughtfully. "And now the galaxy watches. Some admire your courage, others fear it, but none can deny that you have made an impression." "That's all we wanted," Claire said softly. "To be seen, to be heard." The ambassador paused, his glowing eyes fixed on hers. "Be cautious, Ambassador Bennett. Courage can win admiration, but it can also provoke hostility. Tread carefully." "I understand," Claire replied. "Thank you for your support." Despite these efforts, the mood aboard the Vanguard remained tense. The crew worked around the clock, checking and rechecking every system. Engineers reinforced hull plating, technicians calibrated weapons arrays, and pilots practiced evasive maneuvers until they were second nature. Laura noticed Ryan spending more time alone, staring out at the stars through the viewport. One evening, she approached him quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You okay?" she asked gently. Ryan turned to her, forcing a small smile. "Just thinking, About everything that's happened and everything that's coming. Laura nodded. It's a lot to carry. Yeah, Ryan admitted. But we don't have a choice. If we falter now, all of this will have been for nothing. You're not alone in this, Laura reminded him. We're all with you. Every single person on this ship believes in what we're doing. Ryan looked at her, gratitude softening his features. Thanks, Laura. That means more than you know. Days passed and the signs of impending conflict grew clearer. Reports poured in from Earth's outer colonies, detailing increased Krillian activity near their borders. Patrol ships prowled dangerously close, testing humanity's defenses. Skirmishes broke out sporadically, though none escalated into full-scale battles. Yet, on the bridge of the Vanguard, Ryan gathered his senior staff for a final briefing. The room was filled with tension as he outlined their strategy. When the Krillians strike, they'll aim for our weakest points, he explained, pointing to a map displayed on the central console. Our job is to hold the line long enough for reinforcements to arrive. If we can delay them, even for a few hours, it might give Earth Command the time they need to mobilize. Ethan raised a hand. What about the civilians? Shouldn't we evacuate the colonies? Ryan shook his head. There isn't enough time. Besides, evacuating would signal weakness. We stay and fight. Together. The crew exchanged determined glances. They understood the stakes. This wasn't just about defending territory. It was about proving that humanity could stand its ground. If they succeeded, they would earn the respect of the galaxy. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. As the meeting ended, Ryan stepped back onto the bridge, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. The stars twinkled faintly, indifferent to the storm brewing below. For the first time, in years, Ryan felt a strange sense of clarity. Humanity had taken its first step toward earning a place among the stars. Now, they had to prove they belonged there, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The Krillians struck without warning. Their fleet descended upon Earth's outer colonies like a storm, overwhelming defenses and leaving destruction in their wake. The first wave hit Jupiter's moons, Callisto, Ganymede, and Europa, all key outposts for humanity's expansion into the solar system. Ryan Carter and the crew of the SS Vanguard were still en route when the attack began, but they could feel the tension mounting with each passing moment. On the bridge, alarms blared as updates flooded in from Earth Command. The Krillian ships were massive, far larger than anything humanity had faced before. Their sleek designs cut through space with terrifying speed, while their weapon systems unleashed devastating barrages of energy fire. Entire colonies were wiped out in minutes, their fragile domes shattered by relentless bombardment. They're not holding back, Laura Hayes muttered, her voice tight as she scanned the reports flashing across her console. This isn't just retaliation, it's extermination. Ryan clenched his fists, his knuckles white against the controls. He had known this day would come, but seeing it unfold was worse than he'd imagined. Lives were being lost, innocent lives, and there was nothing he could do to stop it from here. Not yet. Ethan, how close are we? Ryan asked sharply, turning to Commander Ethan Cole, who stood nearby, already suited up for combat. We'll be in range within the hour, Ethan replied, his tone steady despite the chaos around them. But we're outnumbered, Captain. If we jump straight into the fight, we'll get torn apart. Ryan nodded grimly. He knew Ethan was right. The Krillian fleet was vast, with dozens of warships compared to Earth's handful of vessels. Charging in blindly would be suicide, but doing nothing wasn't an option either. What about reinforcements? Ryan asked, glancing at Lieutenant Sarah Bennett, the communications officer. Sarah shook her head. Admiral Monroe says help is on the way, but it'll take at least 12 hours to reach us. We're on our own until then. 12 hours might as well have been an eternity. By then, the Krillians could wipe out every colony in the Jovian system. Ryan gritted his teeth, forcing himself to think clearly. They needed a plan, one that gave them a fighting chance. All right, Ryan said finally, his voice firm. We can't take them head on, so we'll hit them where it hurts. Focus on their supply lines and smaller ships. Disrupt their formations, split them up, make them work for every inch. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Sounds risky, but I like it. Laura stepped forward, her expression determined. I'll coordinate with the other ships. We'll set up ambush points near the moon's gravity wells. It'll slow the Krillians down and give us an edge. Ryan nodded. Good. Let's make this count. As the Vanguard approached the battle zone, the crew prepared for what lay ahead. Pilots strapped into their fighters, running final checks on their systems. Engineers worked furiously to reinforce shields and calibrate weapons. Tension hung thick in the air, but beneath it was a shared sense of purpose. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for humanity's future. When the Vanguard arrived, the scene was chaotic. Krillian ships swarmed the area, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space with bursts of energy. Smaller human vessels darted between them, trying desperately to hold their ground. Colonies burned in the distance, their once bright lights now dimmed or extinguished entirely. Ryan gave the order to engage. The Vanguard surged forward, its engines roaring as it entered the fray. Ethan led the charge, his squadron of fighters, peeling off to strike at the enemy's flanks. Their movements were precise, exploiting weaknesses in the Krimlilian formation. One by one, smaller Krillian ships fell victim to their attacks, crippled or destroyed. But the real battle was only beginning. A massive Krillian battleship loomed ahead, its bulk dwarfing everything around it. Energy cannons bristled along its hull and its shields shimmered with power. This was the heart of the enemy fleet, their flagship, and taking it down would deal a crippling blow. Target their engines, Ryan ordered, his eyes locked on the battleship. If we can disable it, the rest of their fleet will lose cohesion. The Vanguard unleashed a barrage of missiles and plasma fire, striking hard at the battleship's vulnerable spots. For a moment, it seemed like the plan might work. The battleship rocked under the assault, its shields flickering dangerously low. Then, without warning, the Krillians counterattacked. Dozens of fighters swarmed toward the Vanguard, their weapons blazing. Alarms screamed as the ship's shields absorbed hit after hit, straining to hold shields at 50%. Laura shouted, her hands flying over her console. We can't take much more of this. Ryan's mind raced. They needed a way to break free, but retreating would leave the colonies defenseless. Before he could decide, Ethan's voice crackled over the comms. Captain, I've got an idea. Follow my lead. Without waiting for permission, Ethan's squadron broke formation, drawing the enemy fighters away from the Vanguard. Using clever maneuvers, they lured the Krillians into a trap, a tight cluster of asteroids orbiting Europa. The rocks provided cover, allowing Ethan's pilots to pick off their pursuers one by one. Nice work, Commander, Ryan said, relief flooding his voice. Now let's finish this. With the enemy fighters distracted, the Vanguard turned its attention back to the battleship. Laura coordinated with the gunnery teams, targeting specific weak points along the vessel's underside. A direct hit struck home, disabling one of its engine cores. The battleship listed sideways, its movement sluggish. Seeing their opportunity, Ethan launched a daring strike. His fighter dove straight toward the damaged section, firing continuously until a critical explosion ripped through the battleship's hull. The massive vessel shuddered violently, then began to drift, lifeless. Cheers erupted across the Vanguard's bridge, but Ryan knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Krillians weren't defeated, they were angry. Reinforcements were already moving in, and the human fleet was stretched thin. We need to pull back, Ryan ordered reluctantly. Regroup and protect the colonies. We've done enough damage for now. Ethan's squadron returned to the Vanguard, battered but victorious. As the ship retreated to safer territory, Ryan allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. Against all odds, they had held their ground. The Krillians had been forced to retreat temporarily, giving Earth's colonies a reprieve. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Jacob Monroe contacted Ryan personally. His face appeared on the main screen, weary but proud. You did good, Captain, he said. We couldn't have asked for more. Ryan shook his head. It's not over yet, sir. The Krillians will regroup and next time they'll come harder. Monroe nodded grimly. That's why we're rushing reinforcements to your position. You've bought us some time, but we need to prepare for the long haul. Meanwhile, Ambassador Claire Bennett continued her diplomatic efforts, reaching out to potential allies. Though many species remained wary of siding with humanity, a few offered quiet support. The Varnock ambassador, in particular, agreed to mediate peace talks between Earth and the Krillians. It's a temporary ceasefire, Claire explained to Ryan during a private meeting aboard the Vanguard. But it's a start. Use this time wisely, Captain. Show them that humanity is willing to negotiate, but also that we won't back down. Ryan nodded, understanding the delicate balance they had to maintain. Diplomacy was important, but strength mattered too. Humanity had proven it could fight, but now they had to prove they could talk as equals. As the days passed, the crew of the Vanguard worked tirelessly to repair their ship and prepare for the next phase of the conflict. The scars of battle were visible everywhere, burn marks on the hull, exhausted faces among the crew, but so was a newfound sense of pride. They had faced the galaxy's most powerful race and survived. Standing on the bridge, Ryan gazed out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and unforgiving, but humanity had carved out a place for itself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And for the first time in years, Ryan felt a spark of hope. The temporary ceasefire brokered by the Varnock ambassador brought a fragile calm to the galaxy, but it was a peace built on shaky ground. Both humanity and the Krillians agreed to halt hostilities while negotiations took place, though neither side trusted the other. The Krillians viewed the ceasefire as a chance to regroup and rebuild their forces, while humanity saw it as an opportunity to strengthen their defenses and prepare for what would inevitably come next. On board the SS Vanguard, Captain Ryan Carter felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The crew had fought bravely during the battle near Jupiter's moons, but the cost of that victory lingered in the form of damaged ships, exhausted personnel, and the haunting memories of lives lost. Despite the brief respite, there was no time to rest. Every moment counted. Lieutenant Laura Hayes stood beside Ryan on the bridge, her arms crossed as she studied the latest intelligence reports. The Krillians are pulling back, she said, pointing to a map displayed on the central console. But they're not leaving completely. Their fleet is still massing at the edge of our territory. Ryan nodded grimly. They're testing us, waiting to see if we'll slip up. Laura glanced at him. Do you think they'll honor the ceasefire? For now, Ryan replied. But don't mistake this for peace, they're just buying time, same as we are. Ethan Cole walked onto the bridge, his flight suit slightly disheveled from hours spent overseeing repairs. How much longer do you think this truce will last? He asked, leaning against a nearby console. Hard to say, Ryan admitted. Could be days, could be weeks. Either way, we need to use this time wisely. Admiral Monroe's sending reinforcements, but until they arrive, we're on our own. Ethan frowned. And what about the colonies? Are we evacuating them? No, Ryan said firmly. Evacuating would signal weakness. We stay and defend. If we show even a hint of backing down, the Krillians will pounce. While the military prepared for another fight, Ambassador Claire Bennett worked tirelessly behind the scenes to secure humanity's position. The peace talks were tense, with both sides accusing the other of aggression. The Galactic Council convened, multiple sessions, but progress was slow. Many species sided with the Krillians, dismissing Earth's claims as exaggerated or fabricated. Claire sat at a long table in a council chamber, surrounded by representatives from various alien races. Her heart raced as she listened to their arguments, each one more dismissive than the last. When it was her turn to speak, she stood up, her voice steady, despite the hostility in the room. We didn't start this conflict, she began, her tone calm, but firm. The Krillians attacked our colonies without provocation. They violated treaties and ignored diplomatic channels. All we've done is defend ourselves, a Zentari ambassador sneered. Defend yourselves? You attacked a neutral trade station. That hardly qualifies as self-defense. It was a message, Claire shot back. a message that humanity will no longer tolerate being treated as inferior. We followed your rules, attended your meetings, and played by your game, and yet you ignored us. Until now. Her words caused a stir among the council members. Some looked uneasy, while others remained hostile. But Claire knew she had planted a seed of doubt. Not everyone believed the Krillian version of events, and that gave her hope. Back aboard the Vanguard, tensions ran high as the crew worked around the clock to repair the ship and fortify its defenses. Engineers welded damaged sections of the hull, while technicians calibrated weapon systems and reinforced shields. Pilots practiced maneuvers in simulators, preparing for the next battle. Everyone understood that the ceasefire was only temporary, and when the fighting resumed, it would be worse than before. Laura spent most of her time coordinating with Earth Command, ensuring that reinforcements reached the outer colonies in time. She also worked closely with Sarah Bennett, the communications officer, to monitor Krillian activity. Together, they identified key choke points where Earth's fleet could gain an advantage. "We can't win a straight-up fight," Laura explained, during a briefing with Ryan and Ethan. "But we can use the terrain to our benefit. Gravity wells, asteroid fields. They'll slow the Krillians down and give us a chance to strike." Ryan nodded approvingly. "Good thinking. Let's set up ambush points near those locations. If we can pick them off piece by piece, we might stand a chance." Ethan grinned. "Piece by piece sounds good to me." As the days passed, rumors spread across the galaxy about humanity's growing defiance. Some species admired Earth's boldness, seeing it as proof that humans were capable of standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest powers. Others condemned the actions as reckless and dangerous, predicting that humanity's arrogance would lead to its downfall. Among the admirers was the Varnock ambassador, who privately met with Claire to discuss the situation. "Your people have surprised many," he rumbled, his glowing eyes fixed on hers. "Some view your actions as foolish, but others see them as courageous. It is intriguing." Claire smiled faintly. "We didn't want to fight, but we won't back down either." The ambassador tilted his head thoughtfully. "Then perhaps there is a path forward, a compromise that satisfies both sides." "What kind of compromise?" Claire asked cautiously. "One that recognizes humanity's strength and its right to exist as equals," the ambassador replied. "But such a solution will require patience and sacrifice." "I understand," Claire said softly. "Thank you for your support." Despite these efforts, the Krillians grew increasingly aggressive, testing Earth's defenses with probing attacks along the borders. Each skirmish was minor, designed to gauge humanity's response, but they served as a reminder that war was never far away. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Ryan watched as another Krillian patrol ship withdrew after a brief engagement. His jaw tightened as he turned to Laura. "They're daring us to break the ceasefire." "They're trying to provoke us," Laura agreed. "If we retaliate, they'll claim we started it." Ryan shook his head. "We can't take the bait." "Not yet." Laura hesitated before speaking. "What happens if they push too far? What's our breaking point?" Ryan stared out at the stars, his expression unreadable. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know one thing. We're not going back to being ignored. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As the ceasefire dragged on, humanity's resolve only grew stronger. The colonies rallied behind the fleet, sending supplies and messages of support. Back on Earth, protests erupted in major cities demanding justice for Titan and vowing to resist Krillian aggression. For the first time in years, humanity felt united, not just as nations, but as a single species fighting for its place in the galaxy. On board the Vanguard, the crew shared that sense of unity. They trained harder, worked longer, and supported one another through the grueling preparations. Even Ethan, who rarely showed emotion, seemed more determined than ever. "This isn't just about us anymore," he told Ryan during a quiet moment on the bridge. "It's about everyone back home. If we fail, everything we've built goes with us." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "We won't fail. Humanity has faced challenges before, and we've always found a way to overcome them. This time will be no different." Ethan nodded, a fierce determination in his eyes. Then let's make sure of it. The galaxy held its breath as the ceasefire entered its final days. Both humanity and the Krillians prepared for the inevitable clash, knowing that the outcome would shape the future of interstellar relations. For Ryan and his crew, the stakes had never been higher. They had proven they could fight, but now they had to prove they could endure. Standing on the bridge, Ryan gazed out at the endless expanse of space. The stars twinkled faintly, indifferent to the drama unfolding below. He allowed himself a small smile, knowing that whatever came next, humanity, was ready, and for the first time in years the galaxy was watching. The final day of the ceasefire arrived, and with it came a tense silence that stretched across the galaxy. The Krillians had withdrawn their patrols from Earth's borders, but everyone aboard the SS Vanguard knew it was only a matter of time before they returned. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the star-filled viewport as if searching for answers among the distant lights. Lieutenant Laura Hayes joined him, her expression unreadable. "Do you think they'll actually show up?" she asked, her voice low. "They will," Ryan replied without hesitation. "They're just waiting for the perfect moment to strike." Laura nodded, though her gaze remained troubled. "And when they do, are we ready?" Ryan turned to her, his face calm but resolute. "We have to be. There's no turning back now." The peace talks continued in fits and starts, with both sides unwilling to budge. Ambassador Claire Bennett worked tirelessly to find common ground, but progress was painfully slow. The Krillian ambassador, a towering figure with cold, calculating eyes, refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Instead, he accused humanity of escalating tensions and demanded reparations for the attack on the trade station. Claire listened patiently, her frustration simmering beneath the surface. When it was her turn to speak, she leaned forward, her voice steady and clear. "This isn't about blame," she said. "It's about finding a way forward. If we keep pointing fingers, nothing will change. But if we work together, we can create a future where both our peoples coexist peacefully." Her words earned some nods of approval from neutral species, but the Krillian ambassador dismissed them with a wave of his hand. "Peace is meaningless without order," he sneered. "Your kind brings chaos wherever it goes." Claire clenched her fists under the table but forced herself to remain composed. "Order won't come from domination. It will come from mutual respect." The debate dragged on, leaving Claire exhausted but determined. She knew the odds were against her, but giving up wasn't an option. Humanity's future depended on these negotiations, however flawed they might seem. Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, our preparations reached a fever pitch. Engineers worked around the clock to ensure every system was functioning at peak efficiency. Weapons arrays were tested repeatedly, shields reinforced, and engines tuned for maximum performance. Pilots ran endless simulations, refining their tactics and building trust within their squadrons. Commander Ethan Cole spent hours in the cockpit of his fighter, running through scenarios in his head. He knew the upcoming battle would test everything he'd learned, and more. For the first time, he allowed himself to think about what was at stake. His family back on Earth, his friends among the crew, the colonies they were sworn to protect. It all rested on their ability to hold the line. "You look like you've got something heavy on your mind," Sarah Bennett remarked as she approached him in the hangar bay. Her tone was light, but her eyes betrayed concern. Ethan shrugged, leaning against the side of his fighter. "Just thinking about what happens next. This fight, it's not going to be easy. No one ever said it would." Sarah replied, "But you've got this, all of us do." Ethan gave her a small smile. "Thanks, I needed to hear that." As the hours ticked by, reports poured in from Earth Command. The Krillian fleet had begun moving again, slowly advancing toward human-controlled space. Their numbers were staggering, far greater than anything humanity had faced before. Admiral Jacob Monroe contacted Ryan directly, his face grim on the view screen. "Captain, we've intercepted intel suggesting the Krillians are planning a full-scale assault," Monroe said. "Their target appears to be Ganymede. They're aiming to hit hard and fast." Ryan nodded, his jaw tightening. Ganymede was one of Earth's largest colonies, home to thousands of civilians. Losing it would be catastrophic, not just strategically, but symbolically. We'll stop them, Ryan promised. Whatever it takes. Monroe hesitated before responding. Reinforcements are still en route, but they won't arrive in time. You're on your own for now. I understand, sir, Ryan said firmly. We'll hold the line. The battle began at dawn, Earth Standard Time. The Krillian fleet emerged from hyperspace near Ganymede, their ships blotting out the stars. With their sheer size, energy weapons lit up the darkness as they opened fire on the colony's defenses. Explosions rocked the surface, sending plumes of debris into orbit. The Vanguard surged forward, its engines roaring as it led the charge. Ethan's squadron peeled off to engage the enemy fighters, their movements swift and precise. They darted between larger ships, targeting weak points and disrupting formations. Despite being outnumbered, their skill and determination gave them an edge. On the bridge, Ryan coordinated the fleet's efforts, his voice steady as he issued commands. Focus on their carriers, he shouted. If we take them out, the rest will fall apart. Laura relayed the orders quickly, her hands flying over her console. The human fleet responded with precision, concentrating their fire on key targets. One by one, Krillian ships fell victim to their attacks, crippled or destroyed. But the Krillians weren't backing down. Their flagship, a monstrous vessel bristling with cannons, moved into position, unleashing devastating barrages that overwhelmed the Vanguard's shields. Alarms blared as the ship shuddered under the assault. Shields at 30%, Laura called out, her voice taut with urgency. We can't take much more of this. Ryan gritted his teeth, his mind racing. They needed a way to break free, but retreating would leave the colony defenseless. Before he could decide, Ethan's voice crackled over the comms. Captain, I've got an idea. Follow my lead. Without waiting for permission, Ethan's squadron executed a daring maneuver, drawing the enemy's attention away from the Vanguard. Using the gravity well of Ganymede to their advantage, they lured the Krillian fighters into a trap. The rocky terrain provided cover, allowing Ethan's pilots to pick off their pursuers one by one. Nice work, Commander, Ryan said, relief flooding his voice. Now let's finish this. With the enemy distracted, the Vanguard turned its attention back to the flagship. Laura coordinated with the gunnery teams, targeting specific weak points along the vessel's underside. A direct hit struck home, disabling one of its engine cores. The massive ship listed sideways, its movement sluggish. Seeing their opportunity, Ethan launched a final strike. His fighter dove straight toward the damaged section, firing continuously until a critical explosion ripped through the flagship's hull. The behemoth shuddered violently, then began to drift, lifeless. Cheers erupted across the Vanguard's bridge, but Ryan knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Krillians were reeling, but they weren't defeated. Reinforcements were already moving in, and the human fleet was stretched thin. We need to pull back, Ryan ordered reluctantly. Regroup and protect the colony. We've done enough damage for now. Ethan's squadron returned to the Vanguard, battered but victorious. As the ship retreated to safer territory, Ryan allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. Against all odds, they had held their ground. The Krillians had been forced to retreat temporarily, giving Earth's colonies a reprieve. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Council reconvened to address the escalating conflict. To everyone's surprise, the Varnock ambassador proposed a resolution. Recognize humanity as a legitimate member of galactic society, with equal rights and protections. The motion sparked heated debate, but ultimately, it passed by a narrow margin. When the news reached the Vanguard, and the crew erupted in cheers. For the first time in history, humanity had earned a seat at the table. It wasn't perfect, there were still challenges ahead, but it was a start. Standing on the bridge, Ryan gazed out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and unforgiving, but humanity had carved out a place for itself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And for the first time in years, Ryan felt a spark of hope.